Coming your way on this edition of the San Francisco 49ers Report by Chat Sports, I'm Chase Sr. Mandatory minicamp, it's in the rear view. And on today's show, we take a look at a fresh list of cut candidates after the 3 days of practices, players who were on the roster bubble for San Francisco, as we also look ahead to training camp. But first, if you want more content from me here on the San Francisco 49ers Report, obviously you're watching a long-form video right here, but I also do a lot of short-form content and updates on our YouTube Shorts page. You're looking at the home page right now. We go over to the YouTube Shorts page. These are 1-minute videos, instant reactions, breaking news, updates, analysis, opinion pieces, all types of different content on the YouTube Shorts page. So in turn, long form, short form, we do it all here on the Niners Report, and that's how you check it out on the YouTube Shorts part. Niners cut candidates. Let's dive into this new list. And we start off with Drake Jackson, edge rusher for San Francisco, going into a pivotal year 3. And you're looking at a former second-round pick who in small glimpses, in small moments, has had some really impressive head-turning plays in a Niners uniform. Unfortunately for him, inconsistent play has held him back. Injuries have held him back. There's been some rumblings that maybe he doesn't take the game of football as seriously as he should at the facility and away from the facility. All of these things are a little bit of an issue, of course. Some people complain about his lack of maturity. He still is a very, very young player. But for me, all of that is unknown. Let's talk about what we do know. The Niners' actions have spoken loudly this offseason. And to me, that's an indictment on their lack of trust in Drake Jackson. Why? Well, San Francisco in free agency signed Leonard, Floyd, and Yetur Gross-Matos to be, for Leonard Floyd, the starting edge rusher opposite of Nick Bosa, and for Yetur Gross-Matos, the backup to Leonard Floyd. Last year, the 49ers clearly had a lack of trust in Drake Jackson, and maybe that was also due to the fact that he had this ailing knee injury, but what did they do? Really, after that splash performance in Week 1 against Pittsburgh, Drake Jackson didn't do anything after that, and then going into the NFL trade deadline, San Francisco traded for Chase Young. And if Robert Beal, who was a late-round pick for the Niners in the 2023 draft out of Georgia, has some twitch, good first step, good athlete, has a good training camp, look out. Drake Jackson's roster spot could be in question. You also have to talk about that aforementioned knee injury. He did put this on his Instagram story last week or the week before, and we're still not sure what procedure he got, what surgery he got, what the injury was. We just know it was a knee injury. I'm telling you right now, this right here, this many months removed from Drake Jackson undergoing surgery, that looks ugly. That doesn't look great. And this will be a storyline going into training camp here. Now, you talk about Jackson, the player, and maybe that lack of maturity. He is still only 23 years old. And the Niners have a very interesting athlete here who's 6'4", 273, ridiculous wingspan. He's had moments at the NFL level where, as a rookie, 3 sacks in his first 6 games. And you know what I thought was interesting with that wingspan, with that jumping ability? He had 8 pass breakups in a very limited amount of snaps as a rookie. That's a really disruptive play at the line of scrimmage. And then what happened last year when you thought maybe Drake Jackson going into his second year could finally break out? 3 sacks in Week 1. We thought the breakout was upon us. And then after that, literally did nothing. As for the financials, if the Niners were to cut Drake Jackson, $366 in dead money, $1.2 million in cap savings. Cut candidate number 2, Samuel Womack, cornerback, also going into a really big year is he. And the Niners, probably the deepest and the best that they've been at the cornerback position since Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch took over as a tandem back in 2017 to run this organization. And like I mentioned with Drake Jackson, a business's actions speak loudly. A person's actions speak loudly. A football team's actions speak loudly. What did the Niners do in the draft? Drafted Renardo Green in the second round. And then in free agency, they signed Isaac Yiadom. They signed Rock Ya-Sin, both veterans who have put some good play on tape. And then they signed Chase Lucas as more of a slot nickel corner and more of a special teamer. He used to play for the Detroit Lions. But you add that onto the fact that Samuel Womack has struggled this spring. You're deep at that position. And Darrell Luter Jr. made some good plays in the spring during OTAs and during minicamp that put Samuel Womack's roster spot in a little bit of a precarious situation. In his previous 2 years, kind of unfortunate because coming out of college, I like the ball skills, I like the instincts, but hasn't really been able to play, and he's been injured a little bit. He's only totaled 130 coverage snaps. Might need to go somewhere else to reset. I do think that Samuel Womack, if he can grasp that learning curve, he can end up latching on with a different team in the NFL, and he could be a pretty solid player. Now, on many of my cut candidate videos, I've switched up the list as far as players go, but I'm going to go back to the well and put Ambry Thomas on here once again for a lot of the same reasons that I just mentioned with Womack. Deep position, Niners actions, really back up the fact that they're not, or at least weren't totally confident in the current existing players at the cornerback position on their roster, and that's why they made additions there. And then I just think about the lack of trust that this Niners coaching staff has had in Ambry Thomas. When you think back to 2021, he played well back half of the season, had the clinching interception against the Rams in Week 17 to send the Niners to the playoffs. Then in 2022, injured, could barely see the field. Last year, to start the year, didn't see the field, and then after the bye week, he did. And in the regular season, he played really, really well. I thought it was some of his best football that he's put on tape. Overall Pro Football Focus grade of 71.5, run defense grade of 70, and a coverage grade of 70.5. But then in the playoffs, his play just fell off a cliff. Overall Pro Football Focus grade of 29.4, a run defense grade of 30.5, a coverage grade of 29.9, a far cry from what he was able to do in the regular season. He was targeted a little bit more, and the penalties also went up, and he was undisciplined, and he continues to be a bad practice player. If you continue to be a bad practice player, it's hard for you to get on the game field, and when other cornerbacks at your same position are playing good in the spring, and you continue to play poorly, coming off the baggage of getting benched in the Super Bowl, it's not a great look. That's why Ambry Thomas continues to be on our cut candidates list. This deal from our friends at Fanatics, sensational. Do you want to look good? Do you want to be comfortable? And then rep the Niners with 2 shirts, not just one? Well, you can get these 2 shirts. Combo sale, $45 if you go to chatsports.com/49combo. Going to put that link down below in the show notes, in the comment section, and attached to the pinned comment of today's video. You get the scarlet red shirt with the circular logo around the Niners logo. Then you get the print, San Francisco football, with the logo underneath the print in the black shirt there. Once again, chatsports.com/49combo. Get that deal today. It's hot on those streets. Elijah Mitchell, cut candidate number 4, another consistent player who I continue to put onto this list. And the same can be said for Drake Jackson, Samuel Womack, Ambry Thomas, Elijah Mitchell. And the reason why I want to have this conversation and why we're talking about these players is because you think about some of the conversations that the Niners have had as a coaching staff, as a front office. They're always trying to obviously improve their football team like all other 31 teams across the National Football League. But they have individual conversations about individual players on the team. And whether it's any of the players on these lists that we discuss in our cut candidates videos or on today's show for this cut candidate description here, all of these players, for reasons or a reason, the Niners have lacked trust in some of these players, and they've made moves at their respective positions because they're worried about some of these individual players. And for Elijah Mitchell, it's injuries. He's played 27 games in 3 years, and last week during mandatory minicamp, Jordan Mason was getting RB1 reps, and then the Niners' actions. What have they done? They drafted and traded up for Isaac Renardo to take the running back out of Louisville, who has great size and speed. They signed the leading rusher in the SEC from last year in Cody Schrader as a UDFA. And then in free agency, they brought an intriguing running back who's actually the tallest running back that the Niners have signed in free agency during Kyle Shanahan's regime, and Patrick Taylor, who has a lot of special teams ability, but is an intriguing runner. And I think that the Niners have partially made those moves and also traded for Christian McCaffrey because of Elijah Mitchell's injury history. And you know the saying, you can't make the club from the tub. And that's what it comes down to for Elijah Mitchell here. Talented running back. Unfortunately, though, I think the injuries have taken a little bit of a toll on him, especially the lower body injuries, because he doesn't seem to have that juice and that pop and that quickness, the explosion, the power that made him a really, really good running back year one for San Francisco. Joshua Dobbs, cut candidate number 5, a new addition to this list, and this might be controversial to some. Some people might not understand it, but let me simplify where I'm coming from here. This would be a very similar situation to what happened with Nate Sudfeld and Brock Purdy going into 2022. Nate Sudfeld was guaranteed like $2 million, something in that range, don't quote me, when the Niners brought him back to be a backup quarterback. But then what happened in the preseason? Brock Purdy started to sling the rock in training camp, started to impress a lot of people. And then in the preseason, during games, started to look good, performed well. And he was really impressing his teammates, as we've since found out, as well as the coaching staff and Kyle Shanahan. That's what matters. And Nate Sudfeld, on the other hand, was struggling during training camp, not performing well in the preseason. And a lot of people thought the Niners are not going to cut Nate Sudfeld and have Brock Purdy as QB3 behind Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance because they owe him some guaranteed money. But I had said at the time, Brock Purdy makes my 53-man roster because if you think that with what he's put on tape, he's going to get cut and then clear waivers so that you can bring him back on the practice squad at the quarterback position, you are mistaken. The Niners have to keep this guy on the 53. They kept him on the 53. They got rid of Nate Sudfeld. A similar thing could happen with Joshua Dobbs if Tanner Mordecai performs well and the Niners like what they've seen from him, as well as Brandon Allen, and or another talented quarterback gets let go by another team who the Niners could see fulfilling QB2 or the QB3 role. Now, the 49ers would have to eat $2.25 million if they cut Josh Dobbs. They would save nothing. The reason why we're talking about Dobbs here hasn't really popped by any means during the spring. Now, throughout his career, he's filled in nicely as a backup, and really, the bulk of his backup action has come over the last couple of years where he's got a handful of starts. 3-11 record in those 14 starts. He's been a career 62.2% guy, which is well below league average. Again, he's a backup for a reason. Touchdown to interception ratio, 15-13. Yards per attempt, very, very low. Not going to be aggressive in pushing the ball downfield. Just 5.8 there. And then a rating of 77.3. Again, Josh Dobbs is a journeyman. He's been a backup for a reason. But if Brock Purdy were to get hurt for an extended period of time, the Niners would be screwed. And San Francisco clearly had a plan here at the backup quarterback spot. They wanted to go cheaper after giving Sam Darnold a 1-year, $4.5 million deal. They cut that in half for Josh Dobbs. Could it bite them? Let's hope that Brock Purdy does not get hurt because that would derail Super Bowl aspirations for a team that has Super Bowl aspirations to the fullest and a very, very talented roster. Who is in the biggest danger of not making the team after mandatory minicamp? Could be a player who we talked about, one of the 5 today, a different player who we did not discuss. Drop me that name down below. Don't forget to hit that sub button and subscribe to us here on the Niners Report. And if you haven't already done so, check out our YouTube Shorts content.